My name is Elena, and this is the story of how I went from being a mother who gave everything to her son and received nothing but public humiliation, and to the woman who walked into his fancy party in my favorite dress only to be slapped by my own son for it. Before I proceed with my story, my beautiful, loyal, and great family, welcome back to our channel. How are you all doing? Let's start with a prayer. Heavenly Father, I bow before you with love and humility. Bless every woman who finds strength in her silence, every mother who sacrifices her dreams for her children, every daughter who brings light to her home, and every grandmother whose prayers protect her family. Women are the foundation of love, the heart of every story, and the crown of every home. Father, bless them with honor, peace, and endless joy. Amen. My dear family, my heart is heavy. I pour my soul into these stories, yet so many no longer stay until the end. When you leave halfway through, it feels like all my hard work is for nothing. But I won't stop, because love doesn't quit. My love for you and my respect for every woman are stronger than pain and greater than any disappointment. For those of you joining us for the first time, I know you might have doubts. But remember, trust is the seed of love, and I have never broken your trust. Every story I give you comes from a place of prayer, sacrifice, and deep respect for women and families. If your heart is true, write present. If your love is real, write I love stories by Virtuous. And please, if you are new to this channel, welcome. I want you to do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell. Please give this story a like if it touches your heart. This is my story. It's about my son, David, a man whom I loved more than words could say. I had raised him with all the love in my heart, teaching him to be kind, to be respectful, and to never forget where he came from. I never imagined that one day, in front of many people, his hand would rise against me, not in anger, but in shame. A shame born from something as simple as the dress I wore. I am 68 years old now, with soft, grey hair that I often tie back in a neat bun. I live in a small, cozy apartment just above the bakery I have owned for over 40 years. The bakery is my life, my joy. It always smells of fresh bread, sweet pastries, and the faint, comforting scent of vanilla. Everyone in my neighborhood knows me. They know me for my smile, my warm hugs, and my apple pies, which people say are legendary. I have always been a simple woman. I do not care for expensive clothes or fancy jewels. My dresses are often handmade, practical, and a little old-fashioned, but I always keep them clean and well mended. I believe that true beauty comes from a kind heart, not from what a person wears. My own mother taught me that. She always used to say, "It's not the cloth that makes the woman, Elena, but the soul within." My greatest pride, my whole world, has always been my son, David. I raised him by myself after his dear father passed away when David was just a little boy. Every sacrifice I ever made, every extra hour I worked downstairs in the bakery, every penny I put away, it was all for him. I wanted him to have a good life, a life full of opportunities that I never had. And my David did well for himself. very well. He grew up to be handsome, smart, and ambitious. He studied so hard, went to a good university, and then he moved to the big city. There he started his own technology company. He made very clever things I didn't quite understand, but I knew they were important. David became a very wealthy man. He now lives in a huge house in a fancy neighborhood, drives expensive cars, and wears suits that cost more than all the clothes I own put together. Despite all his success, I believed he never forgot his mother. He would call me every week, without fail. He would visit me at the bakery sometimes, pulling up in his shiny car, and he would always bring me fancy chocolates from the city. He would tell me how much he loved me, how proud he was of me, and how grateful he was for everything I had done. "Mom," he would say, holding my work-worn hands in his, "I owe everything to you. You made me who I am today." And my heart would just swell with a mother's joy. I would look at my successful son, this man who had come so far, and I would think to myself, my life's work is complete. My son is a good man. But as the years passed, I started to notice a subtle change in him. It was like a very slow, quiet shift, almost unnoticeable at first. He started spending more time with new friends, powerful people who also had a lot of money. These new friends valued different things. They cared about appearances. They cared about what kind of car you drove, what kind of house you lived in, what kind of clothes you wore. Sometimes David would bring these friends with him when he visited the bakery. I would greet them with my usual warm smile, offering them my best pastries and a fresh cup of coffee. My bakery, which has always been a place of comfort and happiness for me, seemed to make his friends a little uncomfortable. They would look around at my old-fashioned counter and my simple wooden tables, and then at my slightly worn apron with a polite but distant air. I could tell they were used to much fancier places. And then I think David began to look at my bakery and at me through their eyes. He started to suggest things. "Mom," he would say, his voice very gentle, "don't you think it's time to update the bakery? Maybe a more modern look? And perhaps you should get some new clothes. Something a little more current." I would just smile at him. "Oh, David, this bakery has been just fine for 40 years. Our customers love it the way it island, and these clothes are comfortable. They are good for working in." I truly didn't understand why he wanted to change things that were already so good. But he would insist. "It's about image, Mom. People judge by appearances. I'm a successful businessman now. You're my mother. I want people to see you in the best light." His words, though I know he meant them to be kind, held a tiny sting. It felt as if he was saying that my simple life, my simple clothes, were not the best light. That they were, in some small way, not good enough for his new, successful world. I always dismissed these comments with a gentle wave of my hand. I thought it was just David trying to be helpful, trying to share his new, fancy world with me. I loved him, and I trusted him completely. It never crossed my mind, not for a single moment, that his love for me could ever be tied to something as silly as a dress. Then came the invitation. My David was hosting a very important party. He called it a gala, a big, formal event at a grand hotel in the city. It was to celebrate a big achievement for his company, and he told me many important people would be there. "Mom," he said over the phone, and I could hear the excitement in his voice. "I want you to be there. You're the most important person in my life. You have to come." I was so delighted. I could hardly speak. "Oh, David, that sounds just wonderful. I would love to be there to see you shine." "Great," he said. "Now, listen, it's a very fancy event. Everyone will be dressed up. I want you to look your best. I've already bought you a beautiful new dress. It's a designer gown, very elegant. I'm sending it to you." A little flutter of worry went through me. A designer gown? I was not used to such things, but I did not want to disappoint my son. "Oh, David, you shouldn't have. You spent too much money on me." "Nonsense, Mom. It's my pleasure. Just promise me you'll wear it," he insisted. "Of course, dear," I promised him. "If you went to all that trouble, I will wear it." A few days later, a large, heavy box arrived at my apartment. Inside was a dress unlike anything I had ever owned. It was made of a shiny, dark blue fabric, with tiny, sparkling beads all over it and a long, flowing skirt. It was beautiful, truly beautiful. But when I tried it on, it felt all wrong. It was stiff and uncomfortable. It was too tight in some places and too long in others. It simply was not me. It did not feel like Elena. I tried to make it work. I practiced walking in it around my small apartment. I tried to smile at my reflection in the mirror, but every time I looked, I saw a stranger. I saw someone trying to be someone else. My heart felt so heavy. I wanted to make my son proud, but I also wanted to be myself. The day of the gala arrived. I woke up feeling so nervous. I took out my favorite dress and ironed it carefully. It's a simple floral cotton dress that reaches my ankles. It's old and the colors are a little faded, but it's soft and comfortable. It feels like home to me. I put on my simple silver earrings, the ones my husband gave me so many years ago. I looked at the beautiful dark blue designer gown hanging in my closet. Then I looked at myself in the mirror, wearing my old, comfortable floral dress. I closed my eyes. I had always taught David to be honest, to be authentic, to be true to himself. I had to do the same. I made my decision. With a little sigh, I decided to wear my old-fashioned floral dress. I looked in the mirror one last time and smiled. This was Elena. This was who I was. I just hoped David would understand. I hoped he would see me, his mother, not just my dress, but my heart. I was so proud of him, and I was so ready to celebrate with him. I had no idea, not even the smallest inkling of the public shame that was waiting for me. The journey to the city was filled with a happy sort of nervousness. I took the train, and as I sat by the window, I watched my familiar neighborhood with its small houses and friendly streets give way to the big, tall buildings of the city. I held my small purse on my lap, my heart fluttering like a little bird. I was so proud of my David. I kept imagining his face when he would see me there, supporting him on his big night. A small part of me was still worried about my dress. I wondered if I had made the right choice. But then I would close my eyes and think of my son's smile, the real warm smile he had when we were together, just the two of us. I told myself, he loves me. He won't care about something as silly as a dress. He will just be happy that his mother is there. I held on to that thought like a warm stone in my hand. I truly believed that our love was stronger than fabric and thread. When the train arrived, I took a taxi to the hotel. My goodness, I had never seen a place so grand. The doors were made of glass and gold, and a man in a fancy uniform opened one for me. The floor inside was so shiny, I could almost see my own reflection in it. Above my head hung a chandelier that looked like it was made of 1,000 sparkling diamonds. Soft music was playing from somewhere, and all around me were people in beautiful, shimmering clothes. The women wore long, sparkling gowns, and the men were all in dark, sharp suits. For a moment, I felt very small. I clutched my purse a little tighter. My simple floral dress, which had felt so right and so comfortable in my little apartment, suddenly felt very plain, very old-fashioned. A few people glanced at me as I walked through the lobby, their eyes quickly passing over me before looking away. They were not unkind, but I could feel that I did not belong in their world. I was a little brown bird in a flock of magnificent peacocks. I took a deep breath and reminded myself why I was there. I was not there to impress these strangers. I was there for my son. I was there to celebrate him. I followed the signs to the grand ballroom where the gala was being held. The ballroom was even more magnificent than the lobby. It was a huge room, filled with round tables covered in white cloths. There were flowers everywhere, and waiters in crisp white jackets moved silently through the crowd with trays of sparkling drinks. I stood near the entrance for a moment, looking for David. The room was full of people, all talking and laughing. It was a sea of unfamiliar faces. I searched the crowd, my eyes scanning for that familiar, handsome face. And then I saw him. He was standing in the center of a group of very important-looking people. He was wearing a beautiful suit, and he looked so confident, so powerful. He was laughing at something someone had said, and the sound of his laughter, even from across the room, made my heart swell with pride. That was my boy, my David. I started to make my way towards him, my heart beating with excitement. I couldn't wait to give him a big hug, to tell him how proud I was. I moved through the crowd, excusing myself as I passed by people in their fine clothes. As I got closer, I could hear his voice, clear and strong, telling a story to his friends. "Mom!" I called out, my voice full of joy. When I was just a few feet away, he stopped talking. His smile was still on his face as he turned towards the sound of my voice. For a split second, his eyes lit up. I saw it. I saw the flash of the little boy who used to run to me for a hug after school. "Mom," he said, his voice warm. And then his eyes fell upon my dress. The change was instant. It was like a light being switched off inside him. The warm, happy smile vanished from his face. His eyes, which had been sparkling with laughter, became wide with something else. First, it was confusion. Then, in a terrible sinking moment, I saw it turn to embarrassment. And then, something even colder took its place. Anger. His friends, the people he had been talking to, they all looked at me. Their polite smiles faltered. I saw a woman whisper something to the man next to her. I saw a man raise his eyebrows just a little. They looked from my simple floral dress to my son's horrified face, and then they looked away, pretending to be interested in something else across the room. The air grew thick with a terrible, unspoken judgment. David's face had become a hard, cold mask. He took a step towards me, his movements quick and sharp. He grabbed my arm, his grip much tighter than it needed to be. "Come with me," he hissed, his voice low and urgent, so that no one else could hear. He did not lead me into the crowd to introduce me. He did not give me a hug. Instead, he pulled me away towards a small, quiet hallway near the back of the ballroom, away from the eyes of all his important friends. When we were alone in the hallway, he finally let go of my arm. He turned to face me, and the look in his eyes was one I had never seen before. It was a look of pure, cold fury. "What are you wearing?" he demanded, his voice a harsh whisper. I was so confused, so hurt, my words could barely come out. It's my dress, David," I stammered. "I know it's your dress," he snapped. "Why are you wearing that? Did you not get the gown I sent you? The beautiful designer gown that cost me a fortune?" "I did, dear, I did," I said, my voice trembling. "It was beautiful, truly. But it wasn't me. It was so uncomfortable. I just wanted to be myself. This is my favorite dress. I thought you would understand." "Understand?" he said, and his laugh was a short, bitter sound that did not sound like him at all. "Understand what? That you decided to come to the most important night of my career looking like you just came from a village market? Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is for me?" My heart felt like it was breaking. "Embarrassing?" I whispered. "David, I came here because I love you. I came here to celebrate you. I didn't think my clothes mattered." "Mattered?" he said, his voice rising. "Of course they matter. Look at you. And look at them out there. This is my life now. These are the people I need to impress. And you show up like this? You are making a fool of me. You are making a fool of yourself." Tears started to well up in my eyes. I couldn't stop them. "Please, David," I pleaded softly. "Don't say these things. You're my son, and you're my mother," he shot back, his face getting red with anger and shame. "You're supposed to support me, not humiliate me." He was standing so close to me, his body tense with rage. I reached out a hand, wanting to touch his arm, wanting to calm him, to remind him of who we were to each other. "David, please." And then it happened. So fast, I almost didn't understand it. He raised his right hand, and he slapped me across the face. The sound was sharp, like the crack of a dried twig. It echoed in the small, silent hallway. My head snapped to the side. A hot, stinging pain exploded on my cheek. But the physical pain was nothing. It was the shock that took my breath away. The whole world went silent. The music from the ballroom faded away. The murmur of the crowd disappeared. All I could hear was the ringing in my own ears. All I could feel was the burning on my skin and the complete and utter shattering of my heart. My son, my beautiful, beloved boy, had just hit me because he was ashamed of my dress. Time seemed to stop in that cold, empty hallway. For a long moment, neither of us moved. I stood there, my hand slowly rising to touch my stinging cheek, my mind unable to process what had just happened. My own son's handprint was a fire on my skin. He stood in front of me, his arms still slightly raised, his own eyes wide with a flicker of disbelief, as if his hand had acted on its own, moved by a force he didn't recognize. The look of fury on his face began to crumble. It was replaced by a wave of shock, and then a pale, sick-looking horror. He looked at his hand, the hand that had just struck his mother, as if it were a foreign object. He looked back at my face, at the red mark that was already forming on my cheek, and at the silent tears that were now streaming down my face. "Mom," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Oh, God! Mom, I didn't mean..." He reached out, as if to touch me, to comfort me. But I flinched. I took a step back from him, a small, involuntary movement. I had never, in my 68 years, flinched from my son's touch. His touch had always been a source of comfort, of love. But now it was a source of pain. And that small movement, that tiny step I took away from him, seemed to say more than any words could. It was a wall, rising between us. Seeing me pull away broke something in him. The last of his anger, his pride, his shame, it all shattered. All that was left was a raw, unfiltered regret. "I'm sorry," he choked out, his voice thick with tears he was trying to hold back. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. I'm under so much pressure tonight. And I saw you, and oh, Mom, there's no excuse. There is no excuse for what I just did." I still could not speak. My heart felt like a heavy, broken stone in my chest. I just looked at him, at this handsome, successful man in his expensive suit, who was now weeping in a hallway because he had hit his mother over a simple floral dress. I did not see the powerful businessman his friends saw. I saw a lost little boy. A boy who had forgotten the most important lessons I had ever taught him. I finally found my voice. It was a small, thin sound, a voice I didn't recognize as my own. I think I should go home now," I said. "No, Mom, please," he begged, taking a step towards me again, his hands outstretched. "Don't go. Please. Let me fix this. I'll apologize. We can go back in there. I'll tell everyone how proud I am of you. Please, just stay." I looked past him, through the doorway, into the grand ballroom. I could see the sparkling lights, The beautiful people laughing and drinking, living in a world that felt a million miles away from mine. Go back in there? How could I? How could I stand beside him, with the mark of his hand on my face, and pretend that everything was all right? The joy of the evening was gone. The pride I had felt for him had been replaced by a deep, aching sorrow. "No, David," I said, and my voice was a little stronger now. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. "I cannot stay here. I need to go home." He saw the resolve in my eyes. He saw that my decision was made. He hung his head, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, Mum. I'll get my driver to take you. Please, just let me do that for you." I just nodded. I did not want to argue. I just wanted to leave this grand, cold place. He walked me out of the hotel, not through the grand lobby where everyone could see us, but through a back exit, a service exit that led to a quiet side street. It felt like he was still trying to hide me, to hide what he had done. He called his driver, and a long, black, shiny car pulled up to the curb. David opened the door for me. Before I got in, he looked at me one last time, his face a mess of shame and regret. "I love you, Mom," he said, his voice pleading. "I really, really do." I looked at him, at the son I had loved more than my own life. "I know you do, David," I said softly. "But sometimes, love is not enough." I got into the car, and the driver closed the door behind me, shutting him out. As the car pulled away from the curb, I looked back and saw him standing there on the sidewalk, a lonely figure under a street lamp, watching me go. The ride home was silent. The driver was a kind man who did not try to make conversation. He must have seen my red-rimmed eyes and the mark on my cheek. He just drove, the city lights sliding past the window like blurry tears. I did not cry anymore. I was empty. I felt like a porcelain doll that had been dropped and glued back together. I might have looked the same on the outside, but on the inside, I was a network of cracks, forever changed. When the car finally pulled up in front of my small familiar building, I felt a sense of relief so profound it almost made me weak. The driver opened the door for me. "Thank you," I said quietly. "You take care now, ma'am," he said, his voice full of a gentle kindness that made my eyes well up again. I walked up the stairs to my little apartment above the bakery. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. I was home. I closed the door behind me, and the familiar smell of vanilla and old books wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. I was safe here. I went to my closet and I took off the old floral dress. I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. It was not the dress's fault. It was just a dress. A simple piece of cotton that had accidentally revealed a deep and ugly truth. Then I did something I had not done in many years. I went to the back of my closet and pulled out a large, dusty old chest. It was a chest that had belonged to my husband. Inside were his things, memories I kept stored away. And at the very bottom, wrapped in soft tissue paper, was a small, beautiful wedding dress. My wedding dress. It was a very simple dress, handmade by my own mother, with delicate lace at the collar and the cuffs. It was the most precious piece of clothing I owned. I took it out and held it up. It was old-fashioned, even more so than my floral dress. It was a symbol of a time when love was simple, when a promise was forever, when a person's worth was measured by their heart, not by their clothes or their money. I hung the wedding dress on the outside of my closet door, where I could see it. I did not know why I was doing it. It just felt right. It was a reminder of who I was, where I came from, and what I truly believed in. My son had been shamed by my simple dress. He had tried to make me feel small because of it. But as I stood there in my quiet apartment, looking at my mother's handmade lace, I did not feel small. I felt a quiet strength begin to return to my tired heart. I did not know what the future held for me and David. I did not know if the cracks between us could ever be mended. But I knew one thing for certain. I would not let his shame become my own. I was Elena, and I was not ashamed of who I was. Sleep did not come to me that night. I lay in my bed, listening to the familiar, quiet sounds of my old building. I could hear the gentle hum of the refrigerators from the bakery downstairs. Usually, it was a sound that soothed me to sleep, a sound of my life's work, of comfort and purpose. But that night, it brought me no peace. All I could see when I closed my eyes was the look of shame on my son's face, and all I could feel was the ghost of his hand on my cheek. When the first soft light of morning began to filter through my window, I got up. My body ached, but it was a dull ache now. The true pain was in my heart. I walked into my small living room, and the first thing I saw was my wedding dress, hanging on the closet door. It looked almost luminous in the pale morning light. It was a silent reminder of a simpler love, of a promise made and kept. It gave me a small measure of strength. My phone, which I had left on the kitchen counter, began to buzz. I looked at the screen. It was David. I did not pick it up. I could not. What would I say? What words were there for what had happened between us? The phone buzzed again and again. Then a message appeared, and another. I did not read them. I turned the phone over, so the screen was dark, and I walked away. I knew what I had to do. I could not stay up here in my quiet apartment, lost in my sadness. I had to go downstairs. I had to go to my bakery. The dough needed to be made. The ovens needed to be lit. The bread would not wait for my sorrow. My work, my routine, that was my anchor. That was my medicine. I put on my simple work dress and my comfortable apron. I tied my hair back in its usual bun. As I went through the familiar motions, I felt a little bit of myself coming back. I went downstairs and unlocked the door to the bakery. The familiar scent of yeast and sugar greeted me like an old friend. I began my work. My hands, which knew the rhythms of this place so well, moved on their own. I measured the flour. I kneaded the dough. The soft, pliable warmth of it, a comfort under my palms. I shaped the loaves and the sweet rolls. I put the first trays into the big, warm oven. The work was hard, but it was honest. It was real, and it helped to quiet the loud, painful thoughts in my head. A little while later, Martha, my sweet neighbor from down the street, came in for her usual morning loaf. She was the first customer of the day. "Good morning, Elena," she said, her voice cheerful. Then she looked at my face, and her smile faded. She saw the faint purplish mark on my cheek, which no amount of powder could completely hide. Her eyes filled with a deep concern. "Oh, my dear," she said softly, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Are you all right? Did you have a fall?" I gave her a small, sad smile. I did not want to lie, but I could not bring myself to speak the truth. It was too shameful. "Something like that, Martha," I said quietly. "I'm just a little sore today." She did not press me. She was a kind woman. She just patted my hand over the counter. "Well, you take care of yourself, you hear?" she said, her eyes full of a kindness that almost made me cry. I nodded and gave her the warm loaf of bread. Just as she was leaving, a big delivery truck pulled up in front of the bakery. It was from a very fancy flower shop in the city, one I had only seen in magazines. The driver, a young man, came in holding a clipboard. "I have a delivery for Elena," he said. "I am Elena," I told him. His eyes went wide for a moment. "The whole truck," he said. "It's all for you." I did not understand. He opened the back of the truck, and I saw what he meant. It was filled, completely filled, with flowers. There were dozens and dozens of arrangements. There were huge bouquets of red roses, baskets of white lilies, and pots of exotic orchids. There were so many flowers they could have filled my entire bakery. It was an extravagant, overwhelming display. Where should I put them all?" the young man asked, looking around my small shop. I knew, of course, who they were from. This was David's way. He had tried to fix my simple dress with a designer gown. Now, he was trying to fix my bruised face with a truck full of flowers. He was trying to solve a problem of the heart with a problem of the wallet. My own heart just sank. This grand gesture did not make me feel better. It made me feel worse. It showed me how little he truly understood. He thought my pain could be bought away, covered up with pretty things. I cannot accept them," I said, my voice barely a whisper. The young driver looked confused. "Ma'am? But they're all paid for." "I'm sorry," I said, shaking my head. "I do not have room for them. Please, just take them back." I felt a pang of sadness for the beautiful wasted flowers, but I could not let them in. They were not a real apology. They were just a beautiful lie. The driver, looking very bewildered, finally agreed. He closed up his truck and drove away, taking the sea of flowers with him. Not even an hour later, David's shiny black car pulled up. He got out. He was still wearing the suit from the night before, but it was wrinkled now. His face was pale. His eyes were red and puffy. He looked like he had not slept at all. He walked into my bakery, and the little bell on the door chimed, a sound that was usually so cheerful, but now sounded like a warning. He stopped in front of the counter. The familiar, warm smell of my bakery seemed to make him uncomfortable. He looked so out of place here in his fancy wrinkled suit. "Mum?" he said his voice raw. "You didn't accept the flowers." "No, David, I did not," I said calmly, wiping my hands on my apron. "I was just trying to say I'm sorry," he said, his voice full of desperation. "I would do anything, buy you anything, to take back what I did. I have been up all night, sick with myself. I am so ashamed." I looked at him, at my son, and for the first time, I spoke the truth of what was in my heart. "The flowers were beautiful, David, but they are not what I need. You cannot buy your way out of this. You cannot cover up this kind of hurt with pretty things." "Then what?" he pleaded. "What can I do? Just tell me and I'll do it." I took a deep breath. "You still don't understand, do you?" I said, my voice soft but clear. "The slap, it hurt me, David. It hurt me more than you can ever know. But it was the reason for the slap that truly broke my heart. You were not ashamed of my dress, David. You were ashamed of me. You were ashamed of your simple mother. You were ashamed of this bakery, the very place that paid for your fancy school and your fancy life. You looked at me, and you did not see your mother. You saw something that was embarrassing your new important life. The truth of my words seemed to hit him harder than his own slap had hit me. He flinched, and the last of his defenses crumbled. Tears began to stream down his face silently. "That is the part you need to fix," I continued, my voice gentle but firm. "And you cannot fix it with money or with flowers. You can only fix it in here." I pointed to his heart. "You need to go away and think, David. You need to think long and hard about the man you have become. You need to look in the mirror and ask yourself if he is a man your father would have been proud of. Ask yourself if he is a man that I, your mother who loves you, can be proud of." He just stood there, crying, unable to speak. "I love you, David," I said, my own eyes filling with tears again. "But I cannot have you in my life like this. Not until you understand. Not until you find your way back to the good, humble boy I raised." I did not shout. I did not scream. I just spoke my simple, painful truth. I then turned away from him and began to take a fresh tray of warm bread out of the oven. It was a sign. The conversation was over. After a long, silent moment, I heard the little bell on the door chime again, and when I turned back around, he was gone. The days that followed David's visit were the quietest I have ever known. He did not call. He did not send any more messages or flowers. He respected my words. He had gone away to think, just as I had asked. A part of me was relieved. I needed the silence. I needed the space to let my own bruised heart begin to heal. But another part of me, the mother part, ached with a profound and lonely sadness. The silence was a vast, empty space where my son's voice used to be. I kept to my routine. I woke up before the Sunday I went downstairs to the bakery. I kneaded the dough. I baked the bread. I served my customers with a gentle smile, though I knew the smile did not quite reach my eyes anymore. My friends and neighbors were kind. They saw the sadness in me, but they did not ask questions. They just offered me their quiet company, a shared cup of tea, a warm hand on my shoulder, their simple, honest kindness was a balm to my wounded spirit. Every morning, I would look at my wedding dress, still hanging on my closet door. It had become my silent companion. It reminded me of my own values, of a love that was built on truth and acceptance, not on fancy appearances. It reminded me that I had done the right thing, as hard as it was. About a week after I had sent David away, I received a letter in the mail. It was a thick, formal-looking envelope from a very important city magazine. I was confused. I did not subscribe to such magazines. I opened it carefully. Inside was a beautifully printed invitation. It was an invitation to a special awards ceremony. The magazine was honoring the city's top business leaders, the most successful and innovative people of the year. I scanned the list of honorees, and my breath caught in my throat. There, among all the important names, was my son's name, David. He was being given a major award for his work for his company. The invitation stated that each honoree was invited to say a few words upon accepting their award. My first feeling was a familiar surge of a mother's pride. My son, my brilliant, successful son. But that pride was quickly followed by a wave of deep sadness. This was supposed to be a moment of shared joy, a moment for us to celebrate together. But now, I could not go. The wall between us was still there, silent and high. I put the invitation on my kitchen counter and tried to put it out of my mind. The day of the awards ceremony arrived. It was a grey, rainy afternoon. I was in the bakery, cleaning up after the lunch rush. The little television I keep on the counter for company was tuned to the local news channel. They were broadcasting the awards ceremony live. My heart gave a little jump. I told myself I should turn it off, that it would only bring me pain to watch. But I could not. I had to see him. I had to know that he was all right. I wiped my hands on my apron and stood there, watching the small screen. I saw the fancy ballroom, much like the one from that terrible night. I saw the well-dressed people at their tables. And then the host called his name. And now, for his outstanding contributions to the technology industry, please welcome David. The camera focused on him as he walked up to the stage. He looked different. He was wearing another expensive suit, but he seemed smaller in it somehow. His usual confident smile was gone. His face was serious. His eyes looked tired. He walked up to the podium and looked out at the large, important crowd. He looked at the shiny, golden award that was waiting for him. But he did not reach for it. He took a deep breath and began to speak. His voice was quiet but clear. "Thank you," he began. "Thank you to the committee for this incredible honor. I should be feeling very proud right now. This is a moment I have worked my entire life for." He paused and looked down at his notes for a moment. Then he pushed them aside. He looked back up at the crowd, but it felt like he was looking right through the camera, right at me. "But I do not feel proud tonight," he said, and a hush fell over the room. "In fact, I feel a great sense of shame. You see, I have been so focused on building an image, on achieving this kind of success, that I have failed in the most important job a man will ever have. I have failed at being a good son. My hand flew to my mouth. My heart began to beat so fast I could feel it in my throat. What was he doing? My mother, he continued, his voice beginning to tremble just a little. My mother is the reason I am standing here today. She raised me on her own. She ran a small bakery, working from before the sun came up until after it went down, just so that I could have a good education, so that I could have a chance at a life like this. Everything I have, everything I am, I owe to her simple, honest, hard work. He took another shaky breath. Last week, I hosted a party, a big, fancy party, much like this one, and my mother came to celebrate with me. She came wearing a simple, old-fashioned dress. It was not a designer gown, it was just a dress. But she looked beautiful because she has a beautiful soul. And I, in front of all my new, important friends, I was ashamed of her. I could hear gasps from the audience in the ballroom. My own tears were starting to fall, blurring the little screen in front of me. My pride, my stupid, foolish pride, made me say terrible things to her. It made me do something unforgivable. I hurt the one person in this world who has only ever shown me unconditional love. I looked at her, and I did not see the woman who gave me life. I saw something that did not fit into my new shiny world. I have spent the last week realizing that if my world is so fragile that it can be threatened by a simple cotton dress, then I have not built a life of success. I have built a prison of appearances. He looked directly into the camera then, and his eyes were full of tears. It felt like he was speaking only to me. So tonight, I cannot accept this award for being a successful businessman, because I am not a success. Not yet. A true measure of a man's success is not in how much money he makes or how many awards he wins. It is in how he treats the people who love him, especially his mother. Mom, if you are watching this, I am so sorry. I love you, and I am so proud to be your son. The son of the kind, simple woman from the bakery. He then did something that stunned the entire room. He turned away from the podium without taking the award, and he walked off the stage. The cameras followed him as he walked, not back to his seat, but straight out of the ballroom, leaving behind the award, the applause, and the entire life he had been so desperate to build. I stood there in my little bakery, my face wet with tears. I was completely overcome. The customers who were still in the shop had all stopped to watch. They were looking at me, their eyes full of a soft, shared emotion. Martha was there, and she came and put her arm around my shoulders. I had sent him away to find the humble boy I raised. I never imagined he would find him on a stage, in front of the whole world. He had not just apologized, he had understood. He had sacrificed his pride, his public image, the very things that had become so important to him, to show me that he finally, truly understood. My heart, which had felt so broken and empty, began to fill with a painful, beautiful, overwhelming love. My boy had come home in the moments after David walked off that stage. My little bakery was completely silent. The news broadcast had moved on to other stories, but none of us had moved. Martha still had her arm around me, and a few of my other regular customers were standing by, watching me with kind, gentle eyes. They had all just witnessed something incredibly private and deeply personal, and they were giving me a quiet, respectful space to feel it. My tears were not tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of relief, of a deep, bone-wearing relief that I hadn't known I was waiting for. It felt as if a great, heavy weight I had been carrying on my shoulders had finally been lifted. He had understood. The public apology was a grand gesture, yes, but it was the words behind it that had healed me. He had spoken the truth. He had acknowledged his shame, and in doing so had freed me from it completely. After a few minutes, I wiped my eyes with my apron. I looked at my kind neighbors and gave them a watery but genuine smile. "Well," I said softly, "I suppose the bread won't sell itself." It is Reese, they understood. It was my way of saying I was all right. They gave me small nods and smiles of their own, and the quiet, comforting rhythm of my bakery slowly returned. I did not know what to expect next. I did not know if David would call or if he would come. Part of me expected the roar of his fancy car to pull up at any moment. But the rest of the day passed in a quiet, normal way. The sun went down and I closed the shop, my heart feeling lighter than it had in a long, long time. I went upstairs to my apartment. I made myself a simple supper of soup and fresh bread. As I ate, I looked at my wedding dress, still hanging on the closet door. It looked different to me now. It was no longer a symbol of what I had lost, but a symbol of what I had held on to, my own truth, my own sense of self. I walked over to it and gently touched the delicate handmade lace. It had served its purpose. I carefully took it down, folded it with love, and placed it back in its dusty chest of memories. I did not need it to be my armor anymore. It was very late that night when I heard a soft, hesitant knock on my apartment door. It was not a loud, confident knock. It was a humble sound. I knew, before I even opened the door, who it would be. I walked to the door and opened it. David was standing there. He was not wearing his expensive suit anymore. He was wearing a simple pair of jeans and a plain grey sweater. He looked like the boy who used to come home from college for the holidays. His face was scrubbed clean of tears, but his eyes were still full of a deep, fragile emotion. In his hands, he was holding a single perfect white rose. He did not try to come in. He just stood there on my doorstep. "Hi, Mum," he said, his voice quiet. "Hello, David," I replied softly. We stood there in silence for a moment, a silence that was not awkward or tense, but full of all the things that did not need to be said. Finally, he held out the rose to me. "I know you don't like big, fancy gestures," he said, a small, sad smile on his lips. "So I just brought one to start." I took the rose from his hand. Its petals were soft and cool against my skin. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "Mom," he said, and his eyes met mine, holding my gaze. There was no pride left in them, only a deep, honest humility. What I said on that stage tonight, I meant every word. I am so sorry, and I understand if you still need time. I will wait. I will wait forever if I have to. I just need you to know that I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the son that you deserve. I looked at him, at my son, standing there, stripped of all his worldly success, offering me nothing but a humble heart and a single flower. And I knew, in that moment, that the wall between us was gone. Forgiveness is a strange and simple thing. Sometimes it is a long, hard journey, and sometimes it arrives quietly, in an instant. Like a bird landing on a windowsill, I opened my door wider. "It's late, David," I said, my voice gentle. "And you look tired. Come inside. I'll make you a cup of tea." The look of pure, unburdened relief that washed over his face was something I will never forget. He nodded, unable to speak, and he stepped across the threshold, back into my home, back into my life. We sat at my small kitchen table, the same table where I had helped him with his homework so many years ago. I made us tea, and we just sat there, sipping it in a comfortable, healing silence. He did not stay the night. After we finished our tea, he stood up to leave. At the door, he turned to me. "I'm going to sell the big house, Mom," he said quietly. "And the fancy car. It's too much. It's not who I want to be anymore." I just nodded. I knew this was a decision he had to make for himself. Then he did something he hadn't done in a very long time. He wrapped his arms around me and gave me a hug. A real hug. Not the quick, polite hug of a busy, important man, but the long, heartfelt hug of a son who had almost lost his mother. I hugged him back, burying my face in his shoulder, and I breathed in the scent of him, the scent of my child, and I knew that everything was going to be all right. He did not become a different person overnight, but he began to change, slowly and surely. He did sell his big house. He moved into a smaller, more modest place. He started visiting me at the bakery every single weekend, not as a wealthy benefactor, but just as my son. He would put on an apron and help me, his clumsy hands learning the familiar rhythms of kneading dough and frosting cakes. And he would laugh. A real, genuine laugh that filled my little shop with a joy I had missed so much. My son learned a valuable lesson. He learned that a person's true worth is not measured by their wealth or their status, but by the kindness and love they show to others. He learned that humility is not a weakness, but a strength. And I learned something too. I learned that a mother's love is strong enough to guide a lost child home, even when the path is dark and full of pain. Our story had a broken part in the middle, but in the end, love, like a patient, careful hand, mended us back together, stronger than we had ever been before. Dear viewers, the story of Alina and David teaches us a simple but very powerful lesson. It teaches us that true value in life is not found in expensive clothes, fancy houses, or important awards. It is not found in the image we show to the world. True value is found in humility, in kindness, and in the love we share with our family. It reminds us to never be ashamed of where we come from, because our roots are what give us strength. David lost his way when he started to believe that his mother's simple life was not good enough for his new, successful world. He traded the priceless treasure of his mother's love for the cheap price of other people's approval. This story shows us that it is never too late to find our way back. It teaches us that a true apology is not about grand gestures, but about a real change of heart. It is about being brave enough to admit when we are wrong and humble enough to fix our mistakes, no matter how public or painful it may be. Most of all, it reminds us to cherish our parents. Their love is a gift that can never be replaced. Let us always treat them with the respect, honor, and love they deserve, for they are the true measure of our wealth. Thank you for listening. If this story has moved you, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe for more stories like this one. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Until next time, be kind, and always remember, at Virtuous Stories, we love you